All right. Hi there, everybody. It is region weather meteorologist Matt Wentz. I want to bring you an update here this morning on our severe weather that is, or at least potential for severe weather that's getting to roll into Northwest Indiana. For some reason, we've had blazing fast speeds down here, and now we have some issues. It's kind of glitchy on my end. So hopefully it's not glitchy on your end. Most important thing is that we get you the information in terms of what these storms are doing as they move in and how they'll behave as they move through Northwest Indiana. Okay. So want to thank our early birds here. We've got Lorna's with us this morning. DZ and Susan are on our YouTube channel. Appreciate you joining us there. Justin's here. Good morning to you, Justin. Darlene, you're absolutely welcome for keeping you informed. That's our main job here as these storms move in. Carol, good morning to you. Rhonda, thanks for joining us on our YouTube channel as well. Let's dive in. So you're looking at the radar this morning, and it is a very ominous line of storms, right? We've been watching this huge complex of storms coming out of Michigan. We had a lot of wind damage up there with this. We had, these things are moving at highway speeds. They've slowed down a little bit, but at one point, coming out of Minnesota into northern Michigan, they were moving at 70 to 75 miles per hour. And these things were hauling, right? Well, they're starting to relax a little bit, and I'm just going to let everyone know right now that we do have some strong winds with these, but the severe threat is limited. I know they look ominous, and there's a big line of storms, and we have the shelf cloud on the leading edge, and some of us already seeing that rain and gusty winds. There's a lot of wind energy with this, but overall, our severe threat is low. We have no severe thunderstorm warnings out for Northwest Indiana right now. I'm really not expecting any either. We may get a stronger storm or two out of this, but overall, this is really just a heavy rain event. We've got really good soaking rain that's going to move through from north to south. We may have some gusty winds accompanying that leading edge of rain as it moves in, but by and large, the severe threat, at least with this round, is on the lower side. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with right now. When you look at the radar like this, and when you're looking at the sky is very dark. It looks very ominous. The radar looks ominous as well. It's not because you have big storms or severe weather always. That's just indicative of the fact that we've got a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is packed. Whenever you have a dark cloud, it's because there's so many water droplets in there. It picks up dust, and there's all sorts of things in that, and it makes it appear dark. There's no sunlight that can get through. The more water drops you're packing into a space. And so as a result, we're dealing with, well, we've got a lot of moisture and heavy rain to deal with. So this is what we're looking at on radar right now. The rain has started areas of northern Lake County, northern Porter County, northern LaPorte County. All right, it's sinking south. The severe storm right now is out just to the east of South Bend. You can see we've got heavier rain returns here in that portion of the storm, but we also have some strong winds on the leading edge of that in a pocket there. We also have severe thunderstorm warnings back in Illinois. There are a few storms there that are producing some hail and some strong winds. The storms that we're concerned with are these pushing in from the Chicago side of things. This storm just east of Joliet, approaching the Chicago Heights area. That's got a little punch to it. We've got some stronger winds with that. That eventually will it's sinking down mainly to the south, but that will affect areas of western Lake County as we go into the next hour or so. We've got some lightning with this as well, but not a ton. And one of the things you can look at in terms of a storm's strength, if you're a radar junkie like me, is you can look at it and see how much lightning there is within a storm. If you've got a radar app that has lightning on it, make sure you have that lightning turned on because it's indicative of what a storm is doing. So if we look at the storms here locally, all right, the lightning bolts on this product are these little plus signs, right? If you look at the storms here locally, there's not a lot of lightning. There's really not. We're hearing some thunder, but it's not really that intense. Whereas we look at this storm here, there's a lot of lightning with that. So that tells you that storm's got good health to it. And you also look up towards the severe weather out towards South Bend, and we've got a lot of lightning with that one. All right. So that tells you kind of how strong the storms are when they're moving in. It also tells you how much atmospheric energy you have, how many updrafts, and how strong that is within a thunderstorm. Lightning is a telltale sign of whether a storm is strong, whether it's strengthening or not, or whether it's just kind of falling apart. And what we're seeing here locally is not a lot of lightning, and the storms are kind of falling apart. All right. They're getting away from their main source of energy, which was well to the north on that low level jet. All right. So that's why I'm really not too worried about these storms, other than some heavier rain, which we could use. A lot of our area farmers could use some rain. I know we got a little bit, an inch or two, with that last round of storms we got, but we could still use some more here in our ground. And we're going to get that. But in terms of severe weather, I'm not expecting much from this. Okay. So this is a storm we'll continue to keep our eye on. I'm going to put this in motion so you can kind of see where they're going here. And you can see how this storm is getting ready to head into western areas of Lake County, all right? If we were to have a severe storm here in the next half hour, it would probably be this one, and it would probably be because we have some stronger wind within it. Maybe pockets of 50 to 60 mile per hour wind. There is some hail in a few of these as well. I had my eyes on this Michigan City, but even that's kind of fallen apart a little bit. And the reason why that storm for you and me, this severe storm, the large complex where really most of the energy is within this entire complex is coming out of southwest lower Michigan into the South Bend area, but that's going to be off towards our east. I'm not expecting that to impact us. All right. Storm is possible with some strong winds. Otherwise, it's just a heavy rain event from north to south. All right. So I'm going to take it off radar briefly here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch sources for. I forgot to put up my region weather sign. We were doing some moving around on the walls. It looks really blank behind me. I'm sorry about that. Looks like I'm in a clinic, ready to check into the doctor's office or something like that. So apologize in advance for the background, but we're not here for show, right? We're here for information. So that screen here, and I'm going to switch sources if that's all right. You get to look at the doctor's background here just for a little bit. And let me switch because I know a lot of you, I haven't seen anyone ask the question yet, but I know you're thinking about it. You probably want to know what's going to happen the rest of the day. Okay, so I want to answer that for you. Here we go. All right, so big picture setup across the country. These storms in this setup, this is really the first time we've had this setup so far this summer. We get it in the late spring sometimes too, but this is a true summertime setup. You get this big dome of heat out in the nation's plains, the Midwest, and you get this big dome of humidity as well. It's super thick out here and tropical. But you notice up and around that dome, that's where we get these showers and thunderstorms that develop in these big complexes. This is the heat dome and the ridge rider. You've probably heard ridge riders. This is that kind of setup. All right. We've got these big complexes of storms that form mainly at night on the low level jet stream, and they ride wherever that ridge is. We can see where that ridge is really well by looking at the CAPE, or the convective available potential energy. Big word for the morning, right? But what that is, that's instability in the atmosphere. All right. So that's what I've overlaid on this map, is where that high instability is. And you can get some incredible numbers this time of year, even at this hour, in terms of how buoyant the atmosphere is. That's what basically this measures. When you get areas in green, that's enough to support severe weather usually. And when you get areas in orange and red, in this case, the way this map works, it's incredible amount of energy where it doesn't take much to puff up a cloud and it turns into a severe thunderstorm. A lot of the time, though, you'll have very high CAPE values where it's super unstable up above you, but you'll have a cap in place where the atmosphere just can't grow storms. Remember, we talked about that on the last Region Weather Live on Sunday night. We talked about that cap being in place and what that means, where clouds want to rise, but then they hit warmer air aloft and they can't go any higher. So you don't get big, robust thunderstorms. So we've got a cap in place across much of this area. But you notice where, back to my initial point, where this ridge is, and you get these storms that kind of ride along that. So for us here locally, we're getting, here's our ridge. Let me let this load here. Here's our ridge right here. And you notice this giant complex of storms that we have this morning. All right. So that's what we've got going through. And that's why this storm system was starting out going west to east in Michigan, but now it's curved and is sinking south across the lake, as I posted this morning. I think it was 4 a.m. we posted that in terms of how this line was going to curve south. And it has curved south. It's riding that ridge and it'll continue south. But you notice here locally, as denoted here on the bottom of the screen, we don't have a lot of energy here locally in Northwest Indiana. We just don't. Most of it's out towards the west. And that western energy is where the severe thunderstorms are right now in areas of central Illinois, whereas this part of the storm in our area is kind of running into more stable air. So that's why we don't have this robust severe chance with us as it moves in. All right. So let's talk about the rest of the day. That's kind of your setup for why it's happening. I always like to explain why things are happening. Now let's explain what's going to happen. In full meteorological transparency, models are really, really, really bad. They're getting better, but they're really bad in this weather setup. They're pretty good with winter storms now. We're really good with cold fronts and determining when storms are going to happen along cold fronts, when cold fronts pass, all that stuff. We're good in most setups, except for these ridge rider setups, all right, where you have a big ridge and you have these giant complexes of storms. It's a very complicated setup, and that's why models aren't great at it. But they tend to, if they don't initiate where the storms develop well, if they don't figure that out, they tend to be wrong the rest of the time. All right. And they change a lot. So, just a word of advice, if you're using a phone app for weather, you're probably going to see a lot of changes on that app every single hour the way this goes. All right. And my forecast confidence, which is usually pretty high, I mean, in all humbleness, it's usually pretty high. It's low in this kind of setup. It really is, because we can get a storm to develop at any time. And in this setup, we can get this big line of storms that goes through here this morning, which normally you'd say, okay, we're fine the rest of the day because the atmosphere is not unstable anymore. But that's not the case. We could pop another complex of storms right after this, given the fact we've got all that instability out towards the west. Okay. So all that being said, I just want you to know this is a highly changeable forecast. If you read the National Weather Service pages, it's interesting because they say the same thing. I said it on the TV side on air this morning. And then I read the forecast discussion, and they had the same thing. They said this is a really tricky forecast. And it's always tricky on this setup because computer model guidance, which we rely a lot on to tell us what it thinks is going to happen, then we put our own spin on it. Computer model guidance isn't always right. It's not very helpful in this setup, all right? So take this with a grain of salt, but this is kind of how it looks like it's going to shake out the rest of the day. So here's our complex of storms heading south, all right? Most of it is fading, okay? The main source of energy with this is out towards the west and up towards our northwest, okay? So it's getting away from that main source energy. So we deal with leftover showers. When this initial line goes through here this morning, that's where your wind hit is. That's where your severe weather threat is. But behind it, there's a big shield of rain. And that big shield of rain will be with us for much of the morning, all right? We're going to get a good soaking out of this, even after that initial line goes through. Could be some periodic lightning within that as well. Most of it would be elevated. You get kind of that fork lightning across the sky just periodically. Probably won't see it because it's daytime. But either way, that's what we're going to deal with is good old stratiform rain for a while after this moves through. Once that moves through around midday, we should, and my hunch is that we would start to clear out. But the models have been very consistent in developing right along that boundary. So this line comes in and lays a boundary down to our south. Where that boundary meets that ridge of instability in the plains, which is just south of us, it develops storms. And these storms just sit. And you can see what the models do. They start to develop back up that ridge into northwest Indiana again this afternoon into the evening, all right? This isn't a guarantee. This may not even be right at all, but I see what it's doing. And I can see this happening, all right? So the way I would broad brush it as a meteorologist is to say, we're going to have scattered storms the rest of the day as well, okay? Even after this complex moves through, all right? It's not a guarantee, but the chance is there that these storms continue to fire along that instability boundary that keeps pushing in. What this spells to me, if this happens, is a flood threat, all right? I know we've been kind of dry recently, but if these storms continue to fire in the same areas, and we have a ton of moisture up above us, we could have some really efficient rainfall producers, and we could end up with flooding where those storms continue to develop. So that's what my mind is going to be watching, and that's what my attention is going to be turned to this afternoon. Yes, we could still get some severe weather out of this. I kind of feel like the severe weather is going to be just south of us and just west of us, but we could get some heavy rain off of that, and we could still get some good thunderstorms around here. All right. So the models do that. It develops generally a complex that heads south overnight tonight and then into tomorrow morning. And tomorrow what's going to happen is we've got this other wave. Let me see. The 12Z is not quite done yet. But let me see how far this goes. So we're working on the 12Z right now. The data is coming in. 12Zs tend to have the most fresh information coming in. So I do like to see this. So that brings this south. It does pretty much the same thing. Develop storms off towards our west. And it brings some of those in with more rain later today onto this evening. And then tomorrow we get an actual kick. There's like a low pressure that comes into this whole thing, and that will kind of kick this out towards the east. And as a result, we'll probably have another round of some showers and thunderstorms. Severe threat looks a little bit lower tomorrow. It's highest today in my mind. But we're not done with the rain really until tomorrow, as this system heads through, and then we'll have drier air coming in. Okay, so that's it. That's all I've got for you. Again, we've got rain here this morning. That's going to settle to the south. I don't think we're done yet. We are going to develop some more downpours, mainly west and south of us, but some of that could get in here as we get into the afternoon. And I am going to keep an eye on a flood threat. All right, because as a lot of you know, and I'm seeing a lot of your comments, these are very efficient rainfall producers that are moving in. Okay. So I'll take you back to the radar. I'll answer any questions you have. Then we'll get you on the way here, okay? As we go throughout the evening, let me get the radar going and let me zoom in for you so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. I love this pattern. As a meteorologist, this is my favorite pattern to predict because it's very challenging, and I learn a lot from it, which is, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I'm not saying there's not a lot of challenge to the forecast, but often the forecast isn't very challenging. And these are always very challenging events because they're extremely random with where storms go. But my background and the thing that I enjoy most about meteorology is analyzing radar. Like, I'll go back and watch the last 24-hour loops over and over to try to figure out where storms develop and why, so that next time I can predict it even better. And I've been trying to forecast these for years. And a lot of times we have success on it, but a lot of times it's a big bust where we end up with, no storms that develop, or we'll have a, 98-degree day predicted, and then we get one of these in here when it wasn't supposed to happen. So this is my favorite pattern whatsoever. It's super tricky. It's not just predicting storms in a cold front. It's picturing where large complexes develop kind of randomly on the weather map. So kind of interesting. Okay. Chris, thanks for the happy birthday wish. I appreciate that. Boy, everyone's wishing me a happy birthday. I appreciate that, guys. I didn't post that on here, so I don't know if you've probably followed my social channels, which is great. I appreciate that. Yeah, birthday was yesterday. It was great. We took the kids. We went blueberry picking yesterday, which is great. And if any of you, just a side note, I'll get back to weather, but if any of you have gone blueberry picking, it's kind of hard to stop picking blueberries. So we're filling a bucket of them, and you keep seeing really good ones on the blueberry bushes, and so you just don't want to stop. So we ended up, man, we got this bucket, I mean a bag probably this big full of blueberries, and I'm looking at it today after eating some for breakfast and sharing them with the kids. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, we're not going to finish that. Like, it's going to get moldy before we finish it. So kind of interesting there. But anyway, appreciate that. Thank you guys for the birthday wishes. Thank you very much. All right. If you guys have any weather questions, though, let me know. Linda, great advice here. The dog and I went out at 7. We're prepared to be inside for a few hours. Yeah, that's kind of how it's going to go. We're going to be inside for a little while here. The good news is, I mean, the severe threat isn't high. This is a big rainmaker. You can see this initial line that's moving through now. We've got really good downpours. Porter County right now, LaPorte County, that's kind of flared up. We've got some real heavy downpours. There are some gusty winds on the leading edge. Let me know, those of you that have seen or that are getting the storms in Lake Porter and LaPorte counties right now, you should have some gusty winds when this moves in. But that's what I'm seeing on radar. What's the ground truth on that? Have you guys had strong winds? Anything crazy out of it, or has it been okay? But that's my question for you. But the rainfall is very heavy. These are very efficient rainfall producers. There's really heavy rain pretty much along the toll road right now, stretching all the way back along I-80 through Illinois into Iowa. Just incredible rainfall out of this, and quite a bit of lightning too, but not really here. But you can see this initial batch that's moving through with the heavy rain. We're not done after that. I'll pause it here. You can see we've got this area of rain. I mean, this is moderate rain falling behind it, and then there's more heavy rain falling back up towards Algonquin and Waukegan. So we've got several hours of good downpours coming in, and if that is the case, and this holds true, which it will continue, I don't see this falling apart. This sinks south, and then we develop maybe more storms to our west that bring in more rain. That's where our flood threat comes from. I don't see a huge flood threat here this morning because our ground's going to soak a lot of this in. But after it soaks it in, we're going to be pretty saturated heading into the afternoon. And if we get more development with heavy rain producing storms locally, I don't think everyone's going to see flooding, but those localized areas that see that could have some pretty, they run a flood risk here this afternoon. Okay. Okay, Heather, thanks for your update. Munster here, a few little gusts, nothing crazy. Rhonda, a lot of folks have pups who are just terrified of storms. It's the thunder, the lightning, the noise, right? So probably a good idea to do that. The good news is there's not a lot of lightning. It could be a lot worse. If this thing was a fresh complex of storms that was rolling through, let's say it blew up in southern Wisconsin, we would have a ton of lightning with it. But it's getting kind of old now. It's getting stretched up like taffy. The most robust part of this was up in Minnesota and Michigan earlier this morning where it developed. So it's starting to fall apart a little bit. Jennifer, thanks for the report out of Valpo. Certainly appreciate that. Race has not a whole lot of wind, but some heavy rain in Westville. Heavy rain, Teresa's reporting in the Crown Point area. Heather reporting the heavy rain in Valpo. Hopefully not a lot of wind with that. Debbie says no odd winds. Thank you, Debbie, for that report. Michelle, thank you for your report from Route 6 and Route 149. Getting some good rain by you right now for sure. Vicki, thanks for the update on that. I really appreciate that. Lynn's asking where to get blueberries. So just check your local orchards. A lot of orchards have blueberry bushes as well, especially a lot of them specialize in apples, but they may have some other stuff they're growing. So that's that. We got ours. Remember, I'm based in Ohio, so I'm morning meteorologist at WKYC right now with roots to Indiana. But that's where I started. I was a chief meteorologist at WYIN in Maryville for years, and then they decided not to do TV. They focused more on radio. So I went to NBC in Georgia. Now I'm at NBC in Cleveland as the morning meteorologist. That's why I'm bright-eyed bushy-tail. I've been up since 2. But anyway, so we went to a place locally in Cleveland area. But that's my ties to Northwest Indiana. I know there's a lot of people on here that maybe don't typically follow, and you're like, who's this guy and where's he live in Indiana? I don't live in Indiana. I have friends and family there, but we're based out of the Cleveland area. So we went blueberry picking here. Thank you, Debbie, for that report. Kathy says blueberry farm in Wanata area. So there you go. Awesome. Blueberries are just so good. They're so full of antioxidants. They're just great for you as long as you wash them. We'll see. Ethan asked a good question. Could these storms still make it to Northeast Ohio? Ethan, my thinking hasn't changed on this. We're going to get this like chunk here, this northern chunk. It's going to have a lot of rain with it. But what we have to watch is this leading edge. There could be some gusty winds with this, but I don't see widespread severe weather for Ohio with this. The main severe threat, the main energy with this entire elongated system is going right through South Bend right now. And we can track that. You can kind of see it on radar, see how the main push with this is right here heading south. That's where your severe weather threat is here in eastern Indiana. We'll have to watch some of these storms out towards the west, but this is mainly a heavy rain event for north central Illinois. All right. And Ohio's just going to get some real good rain out of this, but the severe kind of looks limited. All right. Terry, thanks for the update out of Cherville. I appreciate that. Alexis, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that. My wife freezes bananas that we don't use, for smoothies and stuff that we can't make it in time. I didn't even think about that. Of course you can, because we eat frozen blueberries all the time for like smoothies and stuff. So yeah, thank you for that. I didn't even think about that. Alexis, also thank you for your report out of Maryville. A couple good lightning strikes. Yeah. This is not the weather to go outside in, because this whole thing, it's a giant complex. This is a huge cloud, you guys. It takes up several states. Okay. That's how big this complex is. And there's a lot of electricity and lightning and stuff happening up inside that cloud. Okay. So we can get lightning strikes even way off towards the north in Michigan. When this rain is wrapping up, it's still not safe to go outside. We could still get some lightning strikes at any point in this entire complex. Okay. That's how it works. We'll tend to get some good thunder boomers. You'll get those rumbles that rumble for a long time. We can get some of those on the backside of this. I don't know if you guys know, but thunder has a lot to do with the temperature, the air temperature. So that thunder sounds different when storms first start, right? You tend to get the cracks and the booms. Whereas once the air mass cools up above you, sound travels differently. And so you can get those rolls, the rolling thunder. You can tend to get that on the backside of the storm, if you've noticed. So Linda, I got your comment. Now Linda wants oatmeal with blueberries for breakfast. That is exactly what I'm going to have when I go upstairs, Linda, for sure. That sounds really good. James and Nancy, thank you for the birthday wishes. So tomorrow's severe threat, the threat is there. Storm Prediction Center has us under a threat tomorrow. I'm not as convinced we're going to have severe weather. I think if we had a threat, it would be now with this, and then this afternoon as well, as our atmosphere tries to destabilize again. Tomorrow's, I kind of feel like it's going to be just south of us. It's a really close call, so the threat's still there, yes. But my thinking is it might just be a little bit further south tomorrow, all right? We'll have to wait and see. I don't want to call that and be wrong, and then we have a big line of storms, but that's kind of what my gut says, is that today and then this afternoon is our severe threat. If our atmosphere can reload, which I think it will today. And then tomorrow, I think our threat's going to be a little bit further to the south. We'll see how it goes, though. Mark, thanks for your update. He says steady rain at the Old Hammond Tech High School, so appreciate that. Oh, Jill, I appreciate that. Yeah, Jill's. We've got some Ohio folks on here too that are just weather junkies like me. But Jill, yeah, all my Ohio folks, I hope you understand that I also do weather here for Northwest Indiana. I have since I left Northwest Indiana, because to me, Northwest Indiana, it's an interesting spot in the country. We don't get coverage in Northwest Indiana that we should from Chicago stations, right? We get lake effect snow, where we get a foot or two in some lake effect events. We get severe weather, and Chicago just says, oh, yeah, severe thunderstorm warning for Porter County, or yeah, 2 feet of snow for Porter County. It's kind of like the by the way. And so that's why years ago, gosh, I don't know how long it was now, but years ago, I created Region Weather, and we've posted and updated ever since, and it's kind of grown into what we have here. So interesting there. Aurora, thanks for your update there as well. Alexis, you're welcome. I appreciate that. You do not get left out with Region Weather. She says Northwest Indiana always seems to get left out, and that's true, and it's not fair. So that's why we're here. Let's see. And Aurora says pretty dark, lots of thunder, rain, and windy in Cedar Lake. Yes, so those storms are just getting into you, Aurora. Let me check one thing real quick. I just want to check the wind within this to make sure it's not doing it squirrely. Because what I'm going to end up doing here, I'm going to let you guys go. Yeah, we have that severe storm out towards South Bend. We're still getting pretty good wind on the leading edge of this right now. It's coming down in buckets right now. LaPorte over towards Westville, Valpo, you're getting heavy rain right now. What's interesting, and you can't quite see it on here, we have now developed an outflow boundary. And so what that outflow boundary is that's your gust of wind you get out ahead of the storm. All right. So if you're in DeMont right now, you just had a lightning strike outside of the actual rain. So that's why we got to be careful. Lightning can strike outside. I mean, that struck about 10 miles outside any rain. So there are some lightning strikes out ahead of this. But anyway, DeMont right now, if you're in La Crosse, North Judson, Roselawn, it just went through Lake Village. If you're in those areas, you just got the gusty winds before the rain hit, and that's the outflow boundary. All right. So a lot of times what we look for on radar, if there's an outflow boundary out ahead of the storms itself, it tells you the storms are weakening, which is good. All right. It also tells you, and the reason why you get that wind out in advance of the storm is because you have tremendous amount of rain falling in that storm, right? And that rain's bringing colder air down to the ground. That's why it gets cooler when it rains, because it's cooler up above us. But that cooler air is heavy and dense, and it brings it all down in the storm. And that air can't go into the ground, so it comes out, right? So, that's what you feel. When it's raining really heavy, 10 miles from you, that's all coming down on the ground, and you get that gush of wind out in advance of the rain. So the stronger the outflow boundary, the heavier the rain usually in the storm. So we are getting some pretty good gusts out ahead of that. Yeah, probably, Ethan, in terms of the winds being out ahead of that line, probably not too far removed from it. They're going to stay pretty close to where the actual rain is, but yeah, I'm not too concerned with that. Lance, thanks for that update out of DeMont. Yeah, that was that lightning strike. So you had a lightning strike right over you. And you haven't had rain yet. I know you're getting a couple pitter patters right now. But that lightning strike was in advance of the storm, and we've had that a couple times. It's been kind of rare, but we had one near the Lowell area about 30 minutes ago, and there's a couple out towards the east as well, where the storm is here, the lightning comes out in advance of the storm, and you get a strike 10 miles or so out in advance of the storm. So that's why, National Weather Service says it best: when thunder roars, go indoors. That's why they mean that, all right, because you can get lightning outside of storms. Ray, thank you for that. Yeah. And there's quite a bit of lightning. We still have pretty good lightning in the LaPorte County storm right now. It's just periodic, but there's still lightning with this. It's still going pretty well. But in terms of severe threat, I don't see it with these as they roll through. And I'm looking at some of the wind within these. There are some stronger pockets of wind. Most of that's east, though. It's mainly just this outflow boundary that's getting down into North Judson. It's in northern Newton and Jasper County right now. That's where that outflow is. And you'll get some gusty winds with that, and then they kind of back off and you get the heavy rain, okay? All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. Hold on. We got a question here. Ray, thanks for that. Ethan's asking a question about tomorrow and Saturday's threats. Ethan, it's way too early to talk Saturday's threat. It's way too early. We have a severe threat on Saturday, but it's with that system too early to talk details on that though. Could we get ahead? Yeah, tomorrow. Now tomorrow's interesting because tomorrow we're going to see a development to the west that's going to roll east. Okay, and that could have severe weather with it tomorrow. It's going to be kind of a different setup though. It won't be this giant complex coming in. Alexis, yeah, it helps. It does. When thunder roars, go indoors. So I did at Progressive Field for the Cleveland Guardians. I was in charge of Weather Education Day. You guys that know me know I love educating, right? That's why I like to teach a lot on here. But I was in charge of Weather Education Day, which is when, excuse me, when we have we fill the stands with kids from school and we put on a big presentation. It's amazing. But anyway, I did for the National Weather Service. I did a quiz, and it was A, B, C, and D. And I did what are you supposed to do when you hear thunder? And I did when thunder roars, go indoors. What was it? When you see dark skies, eat French fries or something. And then I did two more really creative ones. I don't know. They were funny. The kids were laughing. It was good. Elaine, thank you for that. Totally correct about not getting the correct weather. Love your weather reports better. Oh, I appreciate that. Elaine, thank you for that. Oh, that's sweet of you. Elaine, I appreciate your kind words. Thank you for typing all that. That makes my day. I do appreciate that. Alexis, I think we will have sun on Sunday. Sunday looks great. I know we'll need to mow after all this. Oh, Karen, yeah, I appreciate your comment too. Yeah, that's the thing. I can't stand drama. And even on the TV side of things, I mean, I know Weather Channel's super dramatic, like everything's da 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 da, and they show the worst of the worst weather, and most of the time it's not even close to that. I can't stand drama. All right, and people I get so mad. So many websites and Facebook weather pages use high drama to get you to click on their stuff so they get paid for whatever, and then they're completely wrong, but you have no one to talk to about it, right? It just drives me nuts. And a lot of news stations will do that. Thankfully, I work at one that doesn't. But weather doesn't need to be hyped. If it's bad, then I'm going to tell you that it's going to be bad. If it's not bad, then we're not going to hype it with damaging wind threat moving in. That's why I titled this. What did I title this chat? Severe weather update. I mean, does that screen click on me? It doesn't. All right. Could we get more clicks and all that if I made it really dramatic? Sure, but we're not going to do that with weather. It's just not fair. It's not fair to people who don't understand. You want to forecast, you want to know how it's going to impact you, and that's what I'm going to give every single time. All right. So here's our storms. Not a big deal. All right. Heavy rain. It's coming down real good. We've got lightning. These are just good thunderstorms. So we'll keep an eye on what happens the rest of the afternoon. Okay, Rhonda, thank you. Very kind of you. And we'll keep our eye on the rest of the afternoon. We would see development out here. Remember, let me overlay it on here real quick. This is where all the instability is. See the instability on here? All these rainbow colors. The development, if we do, it would be along this gradient here where it goes from nothing to something. That's where storms would pop as we get into the afternoon and evening. All right. I do think our atmosphere recovers a little bit. It's not a guarantee we get storms this afternoon, but they'll be around somewhere to our west or on us tomorrow or during the afternoon. Okay. So that's what we're going to be looking at. All right, guys, enjoy your morning. Go get your oatmeal with blueberries here this morning. And we'll get through the rain. I mean, this will be some good rain for us. So hopefully we don't have any flooding out of it. It just kind of soaks into our gardens and farmers will be happy. We'll go from there. Okay. As always, guys, we do have sponsors up above us. They're all amazing. So please support them if you can. Okay. They got a bonus broadcast here today. All right. We'll keep you updated as we go throughout the afternoon. Oh, wow. And that's funny. I didn't ask for this at all. Adrian says, Ewing Mechanical Services, our HVAC providers, they're awesome. I called them yesterday. My issue was fixed within 3 hours. That is so good to hear. I will give them that feedback. But again, we've got great sponsors. We've got a car dealership, plumbers, Tiger Plumbing, Ewing Mechanical Services are great. PSA, if you guys have insurance claims, don't go to your insurance company. Go to publicserviceadjusting.com. They will handle everything from start to finish. Check out their webpage. It's all 5-star reviews. It's like a little known secret. If you need anything around Medicare, Medicaid, all that stuff, it's super confusing. If you have questions around what you need, Even life insurance. If you have questions around that, Minogue.life is the place to go. Michael's been serving Northwest Indiana for a long time. Great guy. He knows his stuff. And finally, FBI buildings. They've been doing pole barn construction. They've done over 20,000 across the Midwest. They're amazing. They'll even renovate an existing pole barn. But those are all of our sponsors. They're all great. Okay. All right, guys. And Marcia just had Tiger Plumbing on Friday. That's awesome. Marcia, hopefully you had a good experience. I've not heard of a bad experience with them. They're amazing. And I love dealing with all of our sponsors. It's not business. It's like they're friends. They're just great. So there's that. Brenda, you're welcome for sure. And I'll be around the rest of the day. If anything breaks or we have anything we need to talk about, I'll certainly share that along with you. Okay. All right. Go enjoy your morning, everyone. Cup of coffee, blueberry oatmeal, sit by a window, not too close though, because it's lightning, and watch the rain fall. It's glorious. All right. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me this morning.